Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Damien, and welcome to What the Frag. I appreciate you joining me on my new channel. I'm excited to get things rolling. Here on this channel, we're going to be sharing lots of DIY projects as well as information for beginner, intermediate, and advanced reef keepers. I'm really looking forward to giving back to the reef keeping community that's given me so much over the past 17 years. You guys have been so awesome out there. So stay tuned. We're going to have lots of information as well as just kind of share the fun because in the end, that's what this lifestyle is all about. So what you see here is a 90-gallon reef tank that I had set up for roughly about 2 years. It really just kicked off my evolution in the hobby. Learned so much that I'm applying now to my new 200-gallon reef tank. But before I get into that, let's talk a little more about how this addiction really started. 17 years ago, I was walking through a local fish store, thinking about setting up another freshwater tank, had like zero exposure to salt water. And then all of a sudden, I see this fish. And I'm like, holy crap, what is this thing? It's amazing. And all of a sudden, I'm just intrigued. And the local fish store owner basically is like, dude, let me get you set up. I get you all the gear you need to take this fish home today. You're going to love it. And I'm going to give you a clownfish, and we're going to set you up with this nice artificial barnacle, and it's going to be perfect. Now, unfortunately, he didn't really mention the part where you cycle the tank, but, the fish hung in there. They're champs, and I actually got the mandarin eating frozen food pretty much from like day 2. So things worked out. I eventually upgraded to a 55-gallon tank where I learned the harsh reality of that you don't take things from the ocean and put it in your tank. But again, that was 17 years ago. We didn't have all the great content that we do today, all the YouTube channels, Randy at BRS. I don't even know if he was making videos back then. So, as you'll find in this hobby, you quickly get the itch to add more. So, I added a 30-gallon and I added a 20-gallon, and, life was good. I had beautiful tanks around my house. But at some point, it just got to be too much, too many water changes to deal with. So I decided to simplify. And I just wanted to focus on one system where I could have more stability. So I got a 90-gallon, fewer water changes, fewer swings and chemistry, and, things were good. But back then, I really didn't have any discipline as a reef keeper, and I got that itch again. So I decided to add a 40-gallon and two 15-gallons to the main system, more water volume, more stability, right? Well, that becomes a problem when you don't quarantine your damn fish. Unfortunately, a bout of Brucanella pretty much wiped out almost every fish in the system. I lost so much expensive livestock. So I went back to the drawing board. I was like, you know what? The 90-gallon reef was working before I messed with it. So I added some expensive gear. Got a really good reef octopus skimmer, got the Neptune Apex, got things really dialed in. It was beautiful. And my tank was flourishing. But then, unfortunately, life threw me a major curveball. Had nothing to do with the fish tank, but unfortunately, we got a huge leak in our house and had to evacuate. So frustrating. Me and my pregnant wife had to move into temporary housing while the downstairs of our house was being rebuilt, and had to pretty much tear down the whole entire tank. But thank God for our local fish store. Seahorse Aquarium Supply in Portland, Oregon is just amazing. Such good people there. They took care of our livestock without even asking for anything in return. They're amazing. So they held on to our fish even longer than we expected. The house is supposed to be done in like 2 months, turned into like 6 or 7 months. So if you're ever in the Portland metro area here in Oregon, go check them out. They're amazing people. So we got moved back in the house. I had to really rush through things. My child was going to be born any day, and so I had to kind of like slap the tank together. Things are going okay, but I made some bad decisions. Yeah, I would never recommend using this fine sand if you want to have more high flow type corals. It just would blown around everywhere. And the worst thing was when my maroon clownfish would just basically just take his tail and just send that sand flying all around the tank, killed a bunch of coral. It looks beautiful, but it's something I'd never do again. In my 200-gallon tank, I went with a much coarser grain sand, and also moved the clownfish to a 25-gallon tank separately. So here you see my sump area. Nothing to write home about. Pretty basic. Just had a refugium area, a really ghetto filter sock setup, a skimmer that I never cleaned the neck quite often enough. It's starting to get some nutrient issues, some hair algae and whatnot, but pretty basic dosing. But I guess the scariest thing in this whole setup was just the electrical. I mean, it was just a mess. Really frustrated me, but that was something that I decided to kind of improve on in my 200-gallon build. Now, one of my primary goals of the 200-gallon build has been just to do things better. I mean, here on my 90-gallon, you see this light, deflector basically that's held up there with duct tape. And again, we had to move in the house as quickly as possible, and I just was tired of getting blasted in the eyes with light. But what you see here is pretty much my concept build for a T5 hybrid setup. I had seen the Aquatic Life T5 hybrid, and I was like, you know what? I got a spare light sitting around as a 6-bulb T5 setup, and I got these two Gen 1 Radion lights, which they did a decent job, but I felt like I never could really keep all the corals I wanted to. But then I moved to this T5 setup, and literally I just took a jigsaw to the 6-bulb fixture, took 2 bulbs out of it, and this was it. And I gotta tell you, I got more color and growth out of a more wide variety of species of corals than I ever had. Spread of light was beautiful. The whole tank was starting to thrive. And so, this is what really made me decide to pull the trigger on the Aquatic Life T5 hybrid. And that's kind of something I do when I can. If I can test out a concept before I jump in to a new technology, I will. I'm pretty good and handy with DIY stuff. So that's something to look forward here in the near future when I post more content, is just more DIY projects and just opportunities to save money when you can, because this hobby will eat your wallet alive. But everything was thriving, looking good. But then I got an awesome opportunity. A member of my local reefing club, they're getting rid of their 200-gallon tank. Beautiful tank. It wasn't rimless, but Starfire glass, the whole nine. 4 foot by 3 foot, so plenty of space for aquascaping. And that was something with my 90-gallon I wasn't happy with. I felt like I was starting to get that piled up rock look, which, me personally, I'm not a fan of. But there's only so much you can do with a tank that's 18 inches wide, like the 90-gallon was. So, that was just a major goal with my 200-gallon, was just to really get that depth, that whole ecosystem kind of vibe. And, I'm super happy with it. So, kind of a bit of a teaser, but we'll be diving more into the 200-gallon on the next episode. So with that being said, thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I really appreciate it. We're going to have some really cool stuff coming up in the not too distant future. I got my tank decked out with lots of frags, anything ranging from high-end SPS and zoas to some classic corals that I've just have loved since my first adventures in reef keeping. In the meantime, if you're looking for a good reefing fix, please go check out my Instagram page at @WhatTheFrag. There I post pictures of my corals and livestock. I like to do some close-up macro photography, as well as share progress updates on my DIY projects and whatnot. So thank you guys again for stopping by. You take care, be well, and we'll see you in the next episode.